Hello, I'm Alicia Davis,
And I'm Stacy Watson.
and we are the co-owners of Transformative Leadership Strategies, a coaching, training, and team building company. And we are coming to you with part two from our last newsletter, which was all about how to be a coach-like leader slash manager. Right, Stace?
Yes. So we had just come off of our first back to in-person conference, which was super
Mm-hmm.
fun. And one of the topics that we brought to that was this coach like leading. And last time we really focused on what does it mean to sort of have a coach like mindset and how we might approach staff or our teams when we are trying to be somewhat coach like, right? So it was all about kind of empowering staff and talking about the importance of having clear and consistent expectations.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so today, what we wanted to do was build on that and really put in a couple of coach-like, what we would say coach-like skills, right?
Yes.
So being coach-like, so I'm actually going to bring up another one of our slides from the presentation that we did. And we wanted to offer this to you, and hopefully it will be helpful. This idea of being coach like really is about considering how are we building relationships with our staff. It's not about old school like telling people what to do. I do think that, right, managers and leaders are often hardwired states to jump in and fix problems because they are the fixers, right? They used to be the fixers, and now if they've been promoted into a manager role, the impulse is still there to want to give advice, right? To want to fix, to want to take care of it. And that's not always the most helpful approach for them and or for their staff, right?
For sure. And so we really love this author, Michael Bungay Stanier. He's written a couple of books. We've mentioned him, I know, before in some of our videos. And some of the things that he really talks about is the importance of starting, if you want to make a change in the way that you are leading or the way that you are approaching management, to start somewhere easy. In other words, start with someone that you have some trust built with, and to try and sort of take a different approach with them. You can even let them know that you're practicing some new skills, right? So I think setting yourself up for some success by starting somewhere where you have the kind of relationship that will give you space to practice a new approach can be a really helpful way to start.
Hmm. And we as coaches, we always talk about how do you start small, right? How do you
Yes.
start with one small thing? And the one thing about being coach like is that it's a lot about asking questions. It's not about giving directives. It's really very much about asking open-ended questions that are about clarifying, that are about getting more information, that are really trying to get to the core or the really the sometimes the root cause or even feelings about what a person is challenged with. So one skill might be to start with practicing to ask one or two more questions, right? And
Mm-hmm.
to do it consistently over time, like not just to try it once or twice, but to consistently approach people with a very open-ended kind of question.
Absolutely. And of course, often we may ask a question and then we are just waiting for the person we're speaking with to take a breath before we can jump in with our next thought, right? So we call that listening to speak. So I'm listening, but I'm kind of listening just for you to stop long enough for me to speak. So part of what I think is another skill that we talk about in many of our sessions is just the skill of listening. It's so important in all of our relationships. And certainly, as you think about the role that you play as a leader, the skill of listening is probably one of the most important skills we can really cultivate, right?
It really is. And listening, like you said, to understand, Stace, like listening
Yes.
again, listening between the words, like what's not being said.
Yes.
Listening, I always like to say you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. So listen twice as long as you speak. And with
Exactly.
this, right, with this approach, an attitude of curiosity, And that attitude of curiosity really helps counterbalance judgment or criticalness. Like when we can be really curious about what someone's approach was or what they're thinking or what they're feeling, that can really help to, again, strengthen the relationship while also problem solving in a really empowering way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the last piece I think that we can offer is actually a quote from Michael Bungay Stanier from his book, The Advice Trap. And it's just so interesting because so much of, as you mentioned, that we're sort of hardwired to do is offer advice. And we do that out of a place of compassion, out of a place of wanting to see people be successful. So it's not a negative thing necessarily in terms of our intention. However, sometimes it sort of inhibits that person's ability to think on their own, develop their own ideas, grow kind of their own confidence about how to work through difficult situations. And Michael talks about this in his book,
Mm-hmm.
and he just has this quote I want to share with you because it makes me chuckle, and I think it's absolutely so true. He says, "It turns out that being more coach-like and staying curious a little longer is harder than most of us thought. No matter our good intentions, we love to give advice. We love it. As soon as someone starts talking, our plan to be curious goes out the door and our advice monster looms out of our subconscious, rubbing its hands together and declaring, I am about to add some value to this conversation. Yes, I am." So Alicia, can
Mm-hmm.
you relate?
Yes, I can.
Absolutely. Right.
Mm-hmm. So we would just invite all, if you're listening to this, we would invite you to notice when your advice monster comes up, maybe try to turn down the volume a little bit, ask a
Yep.
couple of questions, and see how that goes. And we would certainly love to know how your being coached like really makes a difference for you and or for your team.
Absolutely.
So feel free to email us info@tlstransforms.com. And thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.